A few days ago, Liz Truss was announced as the new Prime Minister of the country. Does this now mean we're going to get some stability in the housing market, or does it in fact mean that now we're going to get a barrage of new policies that could massively negatively impact the housing market, property investors and landlords alike? In this video, I want to discuss 6 of her views on housing and how they could impact the property market. Hey, if you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I share with you my 15 plus years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing business. The Prime Minister is days within her new role and has announced Simon Clarke as the new Housing Secretary. That's the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. My concern is that's about the 10th in as many years, and again, without any experience or background in housing. This really doesn't inspire any confidence. Some people say the Conservative Party have been slowly destroying buy-to-let as a business model. Now that we have a new Prime Minister, let's see if any of this is going to change. Let's get a little bit deep into some of her views on policies. Firstly, let's talk about her views on tax. She has already pledged to reverse the planned increase in corporation tax and hints at maybe even reducing it below the current 19%. This would be a real boost to landlords, especially those that are now starting to hold property within limited companies. She's also talked about £30 billion of tax cuts and tax reduction for cohabiting couples. Now, any kind of tax reduction will definitely help businesses, and as property investors and landlords, that's essentially what we are with business people. So it's looking at how some of this might be able to help and stimulate the market. Secondly, she has talked about making home buying much easier. One idea that she has shared is for lenders to start taking into consideration that the rent payments that renters pay when they're taking a look at mortgage applications. This is something that she wants to explore with the overall review of the mortgage market. Effectively, what this would mean is making it easier for first-time buyers to be able to get onto the property ladder and buy their home. And if you're interested in learning how the home purchase process works, then we'll link a video up here for you that you can watch straight after this one. Thirdly, let's look at her views on new home building. The government has a target of building about 300,000 new homes a year. It has simply never met this target. Each and every year it falls short. Now, in more recent times, the government has been shying away from this £300,000 number. However, if the new Prime Minister implements some of her thinking, getting rid of that target altogether, her view is that this top-down approach simply doesn't work. It's more of a Soviet style, which is what she referred to it as, and she wants to encourage a bottom-up approach for economic growth by deregulation and making it simpler to be able to build property and also to have tax incentives in place. This would mean rather than the government trying to reach 300,000 homes by setting these targets, what they're trying to do is create the encouragement at the ground floor level to be able to make it easy for builders and developers to create those homes. Fourthly, her views on planning and levelling up, and this one is my favourite. When Boris was in charge, he led the Build campaign. What he was trying to do is encourage building new homes to deal with some of the housing supply challenge that we have. However, what the Tory party faced was a huge amount of backlash and resistance at the ground level. There were a lot of people that were against some of the policies that Boris was trying to implement, and a huge amount of resistance. The new Prime Minister recognises that the planning system is broken. Something needs to be done about it, make it easier in order for developers to be able to build new homes. She's also said that this policy of one size fits all, this simply doesn't work. She wants to roll out policies that have local consent as well. Now, it will really depend what that means. If local consent means lots of interference by individuals and neighbours about what happens to a planning and development application, then it may be that that's really just going to slow things down even further. Or it might be there's a national set of guidelines that the government rolls out that all the planning authorities have to follow, which would make it much more easier to be able to go out and build. Because that way there's a standard set of rules that everybody can follow and abide by, and the planners can't show resistance on that, and also local individuals that might have an interest can't really interfere with that process. The current planning system is way too complex and has way too much red tape in it as well, and this really needs to be simplified in order for this to work effectively. The Prime Minister has already talked about investment zones where they want to relax planning in those areas and even ease the tax burden to create some economic growth. That would really be a boost to certain areas. She's also talked about building up more in cities, and I'm a big fan of this. This means taller buildings within certain places so that we can create more accommodation, particularly where there's a higher demand for it. Number 5 is her view on building on Greenbelt land. So in 2019, she talked about creating 1 million homes on Greenbelt land just outside London so people under 40s could get on the property ladder. Now, personally, I think that's a great idea. However, during the election campaign, she started to distance herself from that very slightly. So we've yet to see if building on Greenbelt is going to make her way back into any of her policies. When we look at the map of England, the vast majority of the country remains unbuilt on. That means more than 90% of the land is green. It doesn't have any buildings on there. Now, yes, there's a lot of congestion around the main towns and cities, but we really need more accommodation. There isn't enough homes in the country for the demand to be able to satisfy it. So there needs to be some relaxation. It's crazy right now the way the system works. So I'm a big fan of being able to relax some of these rules and allow some building, of course, in a planned and measured way, rather than in a blanket approach of yes, you can build anywhere where you want, because clearly that wouldn't work either. Number 6 on the final one is her views on neutrality. She's already vowed to axe these controversial views that are holding up the construction of about 120,000 new homes. These rules were introduced after a European court ruling in 2018. Essentially what it means, when new residential developments are being created, they can only happen if the nutrient load created through the additional wastewater from the development is mitigated by the developer, such as through creating new wetlands. During her campaigning, she's already said that she wants to remove this Brussels red tape, as it's essentially not delivering on what it was designed to do. And I completely agree with her on that point, because I think it's unnecessarily stalling the development of properties that are good and ready to go ahead and build. There's been some other chatter about some of her views on housing. However, I feel these 6 are important, and depending on what she decides to do with these, it can certainly impact the housing market. Now, some of the things generally are fairly positive, but it also needs to be put into context depending on what else will happen. Personally speaking, I think there's really 2 things that the government needs to focus on to be able to fix some of the problems that exist right now. The first one is the rules around planning. They certainly need reforming, they need to be relaxed, they need to make it easier, and there needs to be more encouragement for developers to be able to want to build, people be able to improve their housing, people be able to build on land that they have. This would really make it easier, and not to mention more attractive, for developers to want to come in and build homes. Secondly is to revisit some of the taxation landlords are facing right now. So in some cases, it almost doesn't make sense anymore to remain as a landlord, and some landlords are selling up and leaving the market, creating more of a problem in terms of an additional shortage of rental property that's out there in the marketplace. The extra 3% in stamp duty that landlords and investors have to pay, and again, unnecessarily penalises them. They're going to be renovating properties, putting them back on the market either for sale as nice new homes, or they're going to be renting those properties out. And by taking away that 3%, it will just encourage more purchasing by investors and landlords. Section 24 and the changes in taxes being the other big thing that's encouraged a lot of landlords to revisit their business model and really think about, is it something they want to continue doing? Now, some of those long-term investors and smarter investors are switched over to buying property in limited companies, but however, those that are still on property in their personal name, some of those are going to sell and really exit the market because it's just not viable anymore. And these are the kind of things that are really making it difficult and discouraging further investment into buy-to-let sector. If you're enjoying this video, then what to do next is click on my face over here to subscribe to the channel. The YouTube data shows me that many people that watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, and it would really help me out by subscribing, because it means that we can reach more people with these videos. Then secondly, if you want to learn more about planning and permitted development and the differences between the two and which ones you can utilize when in your own developments, then make sure you click over here to watch this video next, and I'll see you over here on this video.